Well, hello everyone. Never thought I would put myself here, but here I am, vlogging for the first time. So, if you don't know me, my name is Matt. I drift some cars, and recently, over the past year, built a V8 350Z. I bought off Instagram from California, which I'll go into in a little bit. Competed in Pro-Am, and now it is January of 2020. And I am building that car up to drive in Pro 2 because I finished second in the season. So this is my Pro 2 car. It is not much to look at, but we're building it. I say I'm a lot, by the way. You're gonna have to get used to that if you're gonna watch me at all. Oh, there we go again. I'm gonna build this whole car. A lot of it is gonna be on my own. I do get help from friends and family and everything. Appreciate their help, but I'm here every day after work and on weekends getting it done. This is the interior of the car. It is almost to where I want it, which is completely gutted, and a lot of work will go into it. So this car is getting a complete overhaul. It'll be down to completely bare chassis, almost nothing in it. Gonna strip as much paint as I can, all the sound deadening, everything in it, paint the entire interior, paint the engine bay, do a refresh of the motor, which is getting pretty much completely rebuilt top to bottom. Forced induction. Behind it is going to be a G-Force GSR transmission. What I thought I would be different on this channel about is I really wanted to be straightforward about the costs associated and everything, like what it takes to go from just a bro to professional drifting. A lot of people, you know, they have teams or they have, you know, a shop that they work at and stuff like that. I have a day job. I'm an engineer by day. I do have some background in mechanical stuff, but this is my hobby. This is a shop that we rent. Me and Marco split it. We get everything done and we do it here. So I go to work every day and I get off at around 5, and then I come straight here and work till, I don't know, 10, 11, midnight. I've worked till probably like 3 a.m. here before. And, you know, we don't make money off this at all. We spend a lot of money doing this. Excuse my long introduction, but the whole point behind this whole, you know, when people ask, what is it like building a car? Well, this is what it's like. So I'm going to be extremely straightforward and open about costs associated, time associated, everything. A lot of stuff comes from sponsors and, you know, people helping you out, friends, hookups, stuff like that. And at the end of the whole build series, like I'll, you know, say this is what, you know, I got, you know, either a deal or a sponsorship or something. You can put it to your imagination, what was cheaper, what I paid full price for, but this is the car. So let's get started. So to start off explaining about the car, where I got it, I bought it off Instagram. Some guy tagged me in it. They knew I was looking for a drift car for Pro-Am. And this fit the build because it was a 350Z, which I already had pretty much every parts for, knowledge for. It had angle kit, it had everything. It had a cage in it. Cage is actually pretty nice. It's tight and everything. There's some spots I need to touch up. So like this is welded to here, which is not FD legal. So we have to undo that weld. So gap in the cage up here where it wasn't welded. You can't really see that, so I'll have to weld that back up. But everything was pretty much dialed. It had a V8 in it, which I'll get to in a second. But I bought the entire car for $8 grand. I had to ship it from California to here, and that took about 2 months to like finally find someone to ship it out and pick it up and everything. So that was $1,000 to ship it. So this car was $9 grand out the door to my door. It had a broken input shaft on the transmission, so I had to replace the input shaft on the transmission. But after that, it ran. So on to the motor now. LQ4, it was sold to me as an LQ9, but the internal pistons are different, so everything else is the same between the two motors. So the compression is slightly lower, but the displacement's pretty much the same. Makes a little bit less torque, but it is the same motor pretty much. So the deal with this motor was we put it all together. It didn't have an oil dipstick, so I put a dipstick in it. It had an unbaffled pan, and we ran it for an event. Oil pressure at the event started at 30 psi idled, ended the day at around 12 psi idling oil pressure. So we're like, yep, something is definitely wrong. So we pulled the motor, stripped the entire motor down to bare block. It had metal in the motor, so I think what happened was the previous owner blew a motor and then swapped this one into it. But then when it was swapped, all the oil cooler and everything from the motor beforehand was from the old motor. So all particulate and metal from the old motor blowing was still in the oil system. So when it was restarted, all that metal was recirculated through it. So you could just see in the oil, it was all flaky and it was bad. So we knew we had to do at least rod bearings, main bearings, everything. So we knew this motor was getting torn apart, and we thought, while we're tearing it apart, let's rebuild the entire thing. So this motor was rebuilt from the ground up. Block was removed, taken to a machine shop. It was cleaned. It had a little bit of work done to it, not much, about a couple $100 worth of work. And the only things that remained from this original motor was crank, main caps, rods, and pistons. And everything else was and like external stuff, so like fuel rails, LS1 stuff. Like internally, the only thing that remained the same was cranks, rods, pistons. So did a complete overhaul of this motor, I think including machine work and all the extra parts. So I even did like new oil pump, like timing chain, everything. I think it was around $1,500 to $2,000 to rebuild this entire motor to new state, which we actually made a mistake with. Well, I made a mistake with when I ordered parts, because we were ordering everything together. So if you watch Marco's video or you keep up with me, you knew what would happen. And what we did was we put the wrong rings in the motor. I think what we did was we took a ring from an LQ9, which we assumed the motor was. I think I ordered those before we opened the motor up all the way, because I knew I was just rebuilding it. New rings went in, so all the rings fit perfectly fine, except for the top compression, or the oil ring, had about, I think, like 1/3 of a millimeter of play in it, which you wouldn't really see unless you're looking for it. But you can see my motor was completely like smoking out. It looked like a blown head gasket, but what it was the oil was coming through the oil ring, getting into the piston. It was causing it to foul out the plugs, started running. It essentially looked like it ran rich, and we would foul out plugs, start dropping cylinders. So for 2 rounds of Pro-Am, I ran with it like that. Car smoked all the time, had to replace plugs, had to replace oil, because fuel got in the oil. It was a whole, not fun. So what we did was, after that, I pulled the motor again. I rebuilt the motor, left all bearings, everything. I replaced rod bearings. Because those were $12 to replace, something like that, and replaced the rings, which was $50 to replace. Put all back together, so around $100, I think, between gaskets and everything too. So $100 to rebuild it from that stage. Put it back in, got it tuned. Tunes around like $500-600. Second time was, I think, like $300, so around $900 in tuning. And this motor was all together, back in the car, and it was pretty solid. Other than that, we did do rear mount radiator in the car. So it's rear mount Mishimoto. Fuel cell, I made this fuel cell bracket, already came with the fuel cell. I did some ducting here. So all the Mishimoto stuff was, I think, around like $800, including I have power steering cooler, oil cooler, and then AccuSump is from a separate company called Canton, sorry. And that was around $350, so probably around $800 in Mishimoto stuff, a couple $100 in that. So I think all out the door, probably spend an additional $5,000 on this car. So we're looking at probably $13,000-14,000 for a Pro-Am done car. It's not too bad considering what it takes to build a car, a competitive car. This car didn't make that much power. It made around 350 horsepower, 350 torque. Oh, the only other thing that I need to mention about this was D-Schwartz injectors. So I went a little bit bigger injector, and comp cams for the cam. It is their drift cam in this, and did some springs too. So it's a little bit more robust, more for longevity, and so I can beat on this motor. So from the rest of that, tune was great, oil pressure was great. So this motor is like, it is a good motor. Like it kind of pains me that I'm gonna tear it down and have to rebuild it, but to make that extra power that's needed for Pro 2, it's something that needs to be done. But what are you gonna do? Now that you know pretty much the details about this car, what was put into it, what we learned about it, now we can start working on taking this to a pro level car. So round 1 of FD is in Orlando, which the track is 30 minutes from this shop, which is perfect because it saves travel time. If we have issues, everything's here. It is at the end of May, so I think May 29th. So that gives us around 5 months-ish. You know, we have to have time for testing, so let's call it 4.5 months to get this car from where it is to a professional level build. I think with for the most part, I have a good plan of what needs to get done. A lot of the stuff that has to get done is safety related, so following rule books. I have the entire FD rule book for Pro 2 for 2020, and I have everything highlighted of things that I have done, things that I need to get done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring that entire rule book with me and just make an entire list of things. These are things that you need to do. So motor is kind of taking back seat to getting all the regulatory stuff done for this car, because as of now, if I wanted to, I could get this car regulation ready, throw the motor in, throw a bunch of nitrous in it, and say, okay, we make 550, 600 wheel on nitrous, let's go rip Orlando. But we're not gonna do that. So first order of business, we gotta finish cleaning out this interior. So what I gotta do is remove this fan, remove all the rest of this wiring. So this fan actually rotated so it sucked air out of the cabin and outside of the car. This is an old where the fuel door went. And it sucked all the smoke and all the fumes out of the car. So it helped keep the smoke out a lot, because there's a lot of holes, like small holes here and everything from all the rivet holes where smoke got into the cabin. So it was not fun to drive smoky. Like if you watch some of my Instagram videos in the V8 car, by the end of the laps, the car would have so much smoke in it you can almost not even see out of it. So what I'm gonna try and do is seal off as much as I can when I'm in here. So we'll probably just like spot weld all those shut. Then just keep all the smoke out of here as best as I can, so I don't have to rely on these fans to keep the smoke out of here. So let's go ahead and remove this, and we'll be on our way. So I removed all this. Gotta just remove this wiring. And what I have here is an extra wire. So what you're probably wondering is, where does this go to? Well, what it does is it screws right in to remove that antenna and screw this in here. And this is my radio for the car. So these are like $60 Amazon radios. I have a plug-in here, so it plugs into the radio. So I have my headphone jack here. $15 Amazon headphones used for like people that wear like helmets and sleeping, so they like fit very well into your ear, so I could wear headphones while I drive. It helps me communicate with spotter and crew, so like Marco and my roommate Steven, I could talk to them. And then I have a push to talk button there, so I'll just push that when I wanted to talk. This wire actually goes up here, goes all the way up the cage onto the roof here. And here is my antenna. It's like a 16-inch antenna, which allows me to increase the range a dramatic amount. I was able to pretty much talk all the way across the road to Atlanta. I was talking to my friend who was in the pits, which is on the front straight, and I was going into like the back corners. So next is just pull this wiring and then get into this sound deadening funness that I'm not looking forward to. So now is the next part. Oh, which is all the sound deadening. Get this out of here. This wiring out of here. There's two ways of doing sound deadening. Dry ice. So you put dry ice on the sound deadening. What it does is super hardens it. So if you ever see like apples in liquid nitrogen and they just shatter, kind of same concept where it just makes it super brittle, so then you can scrape it right off. Other option is heat, since I don't have dry ice. We have the wire wheel. We'll get the fine sticky stuff off, and the heat and scrapers will get all of the big stuff off. So like these big chunks right here. So like stuff like this will just kind of scrape right off. And then there's a little bit of residue left, which I'll come back and just get all that off. And it's actually a rule to get all of this out of the car. Safety goggles, gloves, mask here for when I start using the die grinder. It picks up all that particulate and gets in the air. So here we go. So that wasn't too bad. Oh, it kind of smells without that. So this wasn't too bad to get off on really old cars like 240s and stuff. This stuff is just caked on there. You come in here with your die grinder and you clean it up there. You can see that's down to bare metal. Nice and smooth, nothing on it. So we'll do that to this entire area and then paint over it so it'll seal everything in. No rust, no nothing. that was about 45 minutes, an hour. So this, you can see, it's all bare metal. It's all like brushed. So I'll spray over really quick with primer and then start working on another portion of the car. Gonna let that dry out a little bit. Didn't put my mask on, but 7-inch brake. Good old Firehouse subs. Next thing I'm gonna do here is I'm actually gonna remove this gas pedal. So I'm no longer going with the stock gas pedal. This was actually a 350Z pedal converted to cable throttle there for next season. With my ECU setup, I'm going to a drive-by-wire setup. So it'll be Corvette gas pedal with a Corvette throttle body. The throttle will be controlled via ECU. It allows me to do a lot more stuff in tuning, and I'm really setting up my car for the long run. So like transmission, ECU, all that stuff, not just going to be for this season. It's going to be to carry me throughout my career and car builds. And so I want to do something a little bit different and go to an electronic throttle. So I'm going to remove all this right here. Looks like it's about a 10 mil, which I conveniently have right here. So what I noticed here is, so this is the back portion of it. So that allows your cable to pull on something, and it's self-tappered in. I am not a fan of self-tappers. They're definitely really easy to use when you're like in a bind. Not a fan of using them. I will say though, I am guilty of using them myself. I'm not proud of it. Oh no, it was just stuck on really well. There's the whole throttle pedal assembly. It works pretty well for when I was driving my car. Just going with a little bit of a better setup here. Down to 2 pedals like I'm driving an automatic. I'm actually going to remove this handbrake. One thing I don't like about it is if you look from the front, the handbrake is actually angled towards the passenger. So when you pull on it, you're actually pulling towards the passenger, and I have no desire to keep it in there. But I'm going to cut it out. Gonna need to change this blade though. All right, new blade's on. I'm gonna plug it back in and get back to work. It's free. I'll cut part of this off. So that means I can mount my own handbrake back up and get it more back to almost like a stock vehicle rather than what someone else did to this car. So one thing I'll point it out to you because it was probably my first thing I ever welded, and you probably see it in the corner. Check out these welds. They are like bubble gum, and this is actually stainless plate. So that was like probably the first thing, one of the first things I ever welded in this car. And I just cut it out because the old transmission tunnel was like basically cut and bashed in, and there was nothing really here. So like from underside here, it's kind of dark, but I kind of try to make it nice. Inside the car, not the prettiest thing, and I'm gonna redo it, but hey, it's a learning experience. So you gotta look at your flaws and see how can I improve on them rather than trying to cover them up. So it's not one of my proudest welds, but it worked. Lasted a whole season. Kept the transmission tunnel together. Proud. I think that's gonna end it for me here today. So I kind of want to go home and get some sleep, catch up on things, maybe play a little Assetto, keep my touch good while his car's down. If you're curious about anything that has been done to this car, because we spent probably 6 weeks, 2 months, every single night building this car, me, Marco, friends, and everyone. If you want to see that car being built and how we did it and how we did through the competitions, go ahead and check out Drift Happy TV's YouTube channel. I'll leave the link down in the description. A great series. It shows us all working together as a team, as friends, trying to get this car going. And, you know, it was basically down to less than this this time last year. So it shows great progress. It shows what we did, all the kind of like dumb stuff. Like I put spark plugs as my support for that. It was just, I don't know, just fun stuff that we did throughout the season. And we had a lot of work to do, but go ahead and check it out. Thank you guys for watching. I don't know how often I'm gonna upload. I'm gonna try and show more of what I'm doing, because if it's interesting to you, let me know. If it's not, if you wanna see more stuff, also let me know. I'm open to suggestions. Like I said, this is a lot for me, because I wanna see myself, I wanna look back at this and see what I did. And I also want people to be able to understand what it's like to go from bro to pro, as I like to call it. So thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. I'm just happy to be here, happy to have fun, and happy to showcase the work that I'm good at, showcase the work that I'm not good at. So thanks again.
Yeah.